I'd cross the desert to be where you are. All the things I do to be close to you. A million miles wouldn't seem that far.
How's it going, bronies and Pegasisters of the world? It's me, Jade, and I want to give you all my very first top 10 list. In this list, I'm going to explain the top 10 episodes which I wish to see in Season 4 of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Okay, first off, we must agree on something. What the previous seasons were about, at least in my eyes. Season 1 was based around Twilight learning the value of friendship. It was all based around her. Season 2 is about all 6 main ponies, learning about how friendship needs to be trusted. So it's a story about the 6 of them learning from each other. Season 3... I'm not quite sure what Season 3 was about. It's about the 6, somehow. Maybe it was trying to be world building, for all I know. So, following the path of the previous seasons, Season 4 should focus on Twilight learning from ponies outside of her circle of friends exclusively. But that's just my opinion, and now that you know that, you'll know exactly why I chose the following things to be on my list. So let's get on with it.
Number 10.
Twilight learns how to fly. This is at the very bottom of the list for obvious reasons. It seems that Twilight is a freaking natural when it comes to flying. I would have loved to have seen her struggle with this. I say would have, not only because it's not going to happen, but because it would be incredibly redundant due to the season finale. For them to go back and do it now would just be a dumb thing to do. I'm going to tell you how I would have loved this episode to have played out. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy decide to teach Twilight how to fly. Rainbow wants her to learn a rough and tough way. Fluttershy wants to teach her a way that is slow and careful. They disagree, and argue about which method is better, completely forgetting that they're doing this to help Twilight. Obviously, Twilight says, "Fuck this, I'm going for a walk." So she hobbles off. She ends up at the water reservoir and sits to think. Here she finds a random Pegasi. I'm going to use Snowflake because I like him. Snowflake talks to her about how he learned how to fly, and how difficult it was for him since he has tiny wings. He in turn will give her the confidence and encouragement to learn how to fly on her own, which involves her using magic somehow. Like maybe levitating herself and then slowly using less and less magic until her wings are doing all the work. The ending lesson being that not everyone learns the same way, and that it's alright to have a way that no one else uses, as long as it works for you. And we can never have too much Snowflake.
Number 9.
Any Cutie Mark Crusader episode. I myself really like the Cutie Mark Crusaders episode. I do find them annoying at times, but then again, I find any child annoying. The Cutie Mark Crusaders have been going through this, trying to find their Cutie Mark stage for a very long time, and it's really starting to get annoying. We all already know what their cutie marks are going to be, so why can't we just see it happen already? How hard is it going to be to make Sweetie Belle start singing, or Scootaloo find out she really loves to scoot, or whatever Apple Blooms is?
Number 8.
Discord reformed. Celestia, due to plot convenience, is going to leave Twilight in charge of Discord for a while. Unlike before, she's not going to let Twilight ask her friends for help. Instead, she's going to say that Twilight has to do this all on her own. She has to take care of Discord and find out his place in the world. Of course, he's going to cause a few, brief mishaps. Out of boredom, of course. Twilight will try to control him in a way that comes naturally to her, but nothing is going to work. Eventually, she'll start to remember the way that Fluttershy did it back in Season 3. So she'll start being nice to him, correcting him gently, and eventually designating him to an area of Equestria where he can cause chaos for the enjoyment of everyone. I mean, who wouldn't like to go to a park where it rains chocolate milk and the clouds are made out of cotton candy? I know I'd love that.
Number 7.
Return of Gilda the Griffin. I both like this idea and hate it all at once. I don't have an exact idea of how I want this episode to go, but I do know that I want the lesson to be that even if something about you changes, that you don't have to change who you are, and learning this from Gilda would make it a much more important message. Why don't you guys give me your story ideas down in the comments? Onward to
number 6.
Trixie teaches Twilight a spell. I can hear some of you guys yelling at me, and that's okay. Alright, here's how it's gonna go. Trixie puts a show on in town, and Twilight sees her use a new random spell that Twilight has practical desires to use due to a problem we see previously in the episode. Maybe a position switch spell or something like that. However, Twilight doesn't want to ask about it, because it's Trixie, and she's being boastful and annoying. She then notices that Trixie simply does a full show, and the ponies seem to really enjoy it. They even place bits and jewels in her hat afterwards. Twilight is amazed how the ponies seem to just laugh when she picks on someone. Twilight explains her thoughts about this to her brother, who asks to see the show. She takes him, and he even gets picked on by Trixie. But he just laughs it off and says, "Come on, Twilight, it's just a show." He leaves her there along with a crystal that he wants her to give to Trixie. She goes and gives it to Trixie, expecting Trixie to act the way she did in Ghostbusters. But Trixie is nice to her, compliments her, and even thanks her for providing ideas for her show. Twilight is confused, and Trixie asks her to walk with her. She tells Twilight how she came up with the switch illusion by combining several simple spells, like Twilight had. When Twilight asks her about how she acted, Trixie just explains how the amulet corrupted her thoughts and even her memories, making everything worse than it had already been. Upon hearing Trixie's story, Twilight asks her if she could show her how to do the combination spell, and Trixie tells her that she will, on the condition that Twilight be her beautiful assistant. I'm not exactly sure what one lesson to tack onto this. Forgiveness comes to mind, not holding grudges, and truly getting to know someone. The list goes on.
Number 5.
The Return of the Flim Flam Brothers. As many of you remember from the super speedy Cider Squeezy 6000, the Flim Flam Brothers are traveling sales ponies who tried to sell a cider making machine, and that's it. Many of you probably only remember how they tried to take the apple farm. Well, I'm ignoring that for now, and here's why. Twilight is trying to learn how to be a princess, but finds it way harder than she first expected. She gives up for some reason, and somehow Flim and Flam show up and try to sell her some flamboyantly named machine to help her. But she refuses, so they try to give her something else. She rejects their products several times and eventually gets mad and asks them why they won't go away, and if they didn't get enough on how they were beaten last time at Sweet Apple Acres. They laugh and tell her, "What do you think? We've never been rejected before?" They go on to explain how they have no reason to ever give up because there is always someone in need of what they have to sell. She doesn't believe them, so they take her through town, offering various inventions to ponies with random problems. Out of the 6 ponies they ask, 1 purchases a product. Twilight asks them why they do this when they have such a low selling rate. They tell her that it isn't always that way, and that just because they don't sell something, or even end up hated by some ponies, that they will always continue to persevere and do what they love to do. Twilight will then watch them leave, and agree with them, and swear to herself that she will do whatever it takes to make her friends and Celestia proud of her. The lesson being, to never give up, even when it seems like it will never happen. A great lesson to hammer into today's youth.
Number 4.
At least 3 world-building episodes. We need more information about Equestria and how it works, as well as a few more tidbits about the Crystal Empire. And of course, we need to get to know the cities that have been mentioned, and the creatures that we have seen, and
Number 3.
at least 3 rarity episodes. Spike got a ton of episodes. We need a rarity episode. So I demand 3 all about rarity episodes.
Number 2.
Pony parents. We need at least 1 episode each in which we get to see the parents. I think a few good episodes would probably go something like this. Fluttershy's Taming of the Beast. I think it would be cool if Fluttershy had a dad who yells all the time and is really rough with her. He's the only one we see for most of the episode, and it isn't until the end when her mother gets there. And she's the classic super sweet mom who learned to tame the beast of a father with food. What better parents does Fluttershy need? Memories. the Applejack episode. This episode could take place on the anniversary of her parents' death. She and Big Mac take Apple Bloom to the grave and tell her stories about the parents she can't remember. In this episode, we'll get more of Big Mac's voice as he tells us stories, since he's the oldest and remembers the best. Black and white flashbacks will show the parents so that we can at least know what they look like. Their death doesn't need to be explained, just so that we know, finally, the kind of ponies that they were. Tourism. Twilight can have an episode where she, Shining Armor, and Cadence show her parents around the Crystal Empire. In this episode, we'll get to see exactly the personalities of her parents, not just knowing what they look like. We Are Family. A Rarity and Sweetie Belle episode. Rarity and Sweetie Belle can have an episode where their parents are doing amazingly embarrassing things, and in the end, Rarity joins in the silliness because they are her parents, and she loves them. The lesson in this one is that you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family, so you might as well love them. Sisters Tell the Truth. The Pinkie Pie episode. Pinkie Pie's sisters visit the Crystal Empire. Twilight meets them there because they recognize her from the pictures that Pinkie Pie sent back. They talk to her about how Pinkie Pie has sent letters every day, and they tell her how Pinkie Pie was before she had gotten her cutie mark. We can then get to know a little bit more about her parents, and whether or not that was actually her mother or Granny Pie that we saw in Call of the Cutie. And, finally, Double Rainbow. Rainbow Dash's episode. I will make this episode controversial because I'm like that. Rainbow Dash needs 2 dads, and they both need to be just normal guys who happen to be in love with each other. They used a surrogate so they could have Rainbow Dash. This episode has to show how much she loves her dads, and she has to call one dad and the other one Pops. No one in Ponyville will even look at them funny. This will be accepted as normal in Equestria. And when Rainbow Dash introduces Scootaloo to her dads, we'll get to see them share a look that will be exactly the same as the look that they shared back when they first got Rainbow Dash. And finally,
Number 1.
Twilight is sent to the Crystal Empire. Equestria has 2 princesses. Wouldn't it be better to have 2 princesses in the Crystal Empire as well? Twilight would be told by Celestia that she would need to settle in the Crystal Empire in order to become the secondary princess. This makes sense. Friendship and love go together like nothing else does. Twilight won't like being secondary princess. Luna will take her aside after seeing how upset she is and tell her what it was like for her in the beginning. Through this, we'll get to see the past, and we'll get to see more information about why Luna and Celestia are alicorns. After this, Twilight will see how love and friendship are both needed in the Crystal Empire. Twilight will then go to the Crystal Empire with her friends and accept her place as secondary princess. She will remember her talks with Luna and chat with her friends about her plans as a princess. Her friends will help her get settled, and afterwards we will get a little bit more information on the Crystal Empire. And I think that also having the setting in the Crystal Empire will help us a little bit more to better understand love and friendship, which is what the show is about. Now, I know that this is probably not what a lot of you would choose to have in the next season, but it's what I want. And you know what? It's my list, and I'll make it however I want. This has been Jade the AnYPony, and I'm not your mama's Pegasister.
You said you were when I met you.
Yeah, I've been looking for you while I've been losing on me. While the sky stays blue, I'm seeing what we will be. Stay as crooked as me, like a man who can't